How do you stay sane in the midst of a global pandemic? How do you prevent yourself from totally freaking out? That's what this episode is about. You're listening to Pure Light, where we explore how you can believe in yourself and be happy with who you are. My name is Ailey. I'm a coach, writer, and yoga and meditation teacher. This is episode 113. So with everything going on in the world right now, I've been hearing a lot of people saying, I'm just trying to stay sane. And I've said it myself. So I wanted to talk about how to do that in this episode. And I'm going to start by talking about how you can drive yourself insane. So let's say you call or text someone to check in on them and see how they're doing, and you don't hear back. The mind often assigns meaning to that. So before the pandemic, the meaning may have been something like, they don't like me, or they must be angry at me because of this thing that happened in the past. So the mind will look for and find a reason to justify what's happening. So it'll find or create evidence to support that. And in order to do that, it makes assumptions. So it connects the dots between things that may or may not necessarily be related. The mind is constantly reacting to things and making up a story about what's going on. And it doesn't actually care if the story is true. It just wants to make sense of what's happening by analyzing and judging and evaluating and commenting on it. So when it comes up with an explanation, you may just assume that the story is true, the story that the voice inside your head is telling you, and act accordingly. So, for example, if you think someone is angry at you or doesn't like you, the next time you see them or talk to them, you may not be as warm and welcoming as you would be otherwise. And now that this pandemic is happening, the story that your mind comes up with may potentially be amplified. So it may be way bigger and more stressful than usual. Because it could come up with something like, oh my God, maybe they're not well, maybe they're sick, maybe they had to go to the hospital. And it could go on from there. So things have the potential to spiral out of control quicker than usual, and in a much bigger way. And this is important because you'll experience the impact of the story that the mind is telling you, even if it isn't true. So you may feel panic or be in a state of fight or flight because of how the mind reacts to the things that it observes and how it makes sense of that. So it's more important than ever to pay attention to how the mind is reacting to things so that you can catch yourself before things spiral out of control or before you start worrying obsessively. Because things are tough enough, and the mind has the potential to make things even harder. So paying attention to your thoughts can really help you stay sane right now. And meditation can help you do that. Because meditation gives you the opportunity to notice how your mind reacts to things. The mind has patterns in terms of how it interprets things that are pretty much invisible and often automatic, and you only start to really notice them when you really pay attention to your thoughts. Because when you start to notice these patterns, you can change how you relate to your thoughts. Instead of automatically believing them and feeling the stress and the weight of that, you can see that there's the thing that happens, so the event or circumstance, like for example, not getting that text back. And then there's the mind's reaction to what happens. So there's the meaning that you give it or the story that you're telling yourself about it. And those two things are separate. So you don't actually have to believe the mind's reaction. You can choose whether or not you want to believe your thoughts. The mind's reaction may be to assume something is wrong, even though in reality, that assumption may or may not be true. So if you are struggling to stay sane right now, there are several previous episodes that'll help give you some perspective on what's going on in the mind. There's one about the real point of meditation, the automatic patterns, the voice inside your head, and several episodes about worry. I'll include links to those in the show notes for this episode 113, and you can find those at purelightpodcast.com. I'll also say, I've never been more grateful for the fact that I learned how to meditate, because that is really the thing that's keeping me sane right now. And meditation isn't something that came easily to me. I really struggled with it at first because my mind was so busy. So I know how challenging it can be. And I know that even if it seems impossible because it's so frustrating and it just makes you want to give up, there are different ways of looking at it and approaching it that can make it a lot easier. So if you're interested in learning how to meditate, I've made my online meditation course free for the time being. So if you're finding it hard to stop obsessing about everything, or if you've tried meditation and found it to be really frustrating because your mind is so busy, this course is for you. It'll help you see any misconceptions you may have about meditation that are actually making it harder than it needs to be. And you'll stop wondering if you're doing it right. Because that's what usually makes meditation seem hard. You try it and notice how busy the mind is, and then you assume you're doing it wrong or it's not working. So if you're new to meditation, or if you find it difficult and you want to get into the habit, go to experience-the-magic-of-meditation.com. You can sign up there. Or you can also find the link at purelightpodcast.com in the show notes for this episode 113. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, may you be guided by your light.